Welcome to Policy Beats. I'm your host, Javera Kulsoom Atif, and today we're diving into a subject that sits at the very heart of South Asia's strategic equation. Something about what's going on with India and Pakistan, but also their military doctrines, how they're written, their evolution, and their influence on both peace and war. Today we will speak to Brigadier Dr. Rashid Wali Janjua, who is the Director of Research and Analysis at Islamabad Policy Research Institute, and he has previously served in various command and instructional assignments, including Pakistan Military Academy and Command and Staff College. He has held command assignments of an infantry brigade, headquarter corps engineers, military training directorate, and there are many other such things to his credit. Apart from that, he also holds a PhD from NUST, and his master's is in Security and Defense Management from Royal Military College, Kingston, Canada. Thank you, sir, for taking out the time.
Thanks, Javeria.
And as we all know that on 22nd April, the Pahalgam incident took place, and it was an unfortunate incident. Innocent lives were lost. But what happened in response to that is equally unfortunate. So, from a doctrinal perspective, perhaps if we can take this conversation forward, how do you interpret India's rapid attribution of this incident to Pakistan, and do you see it as a calibrated military signal, or it has some sort of political expedient narrative to it?
When we talk of doctrines, when we talk of the current environment, you cannot escape thinking that doctrine is cerebral and the current standoff is visceral. So it's between this viscerality and cerebral thing that the whole issue keeps hanging. Of course, this standoff is a consequence of Indian strategic thinking of late, which has been hijacked by their ideology. And that ideology believes in domination, and that domination springs from the primeval baser instinct, which the Greeks called one of the deadly sins, hubris.
Hubris.
For some strange reason, Indian BJP leadership is in the grip of Hindutva, RSS-backed hate-driven ideology, which believes in exclusivism. It is reliant on megalomania, believes in misanthropy, and looks down upon all other nations, all other minorities, and wishes to cleanse the India of all other influences other than their brand of religiously driven Hindutva. Whenever they wish to win elections, they ratchet up tensions and they rely on those communal riots. Now the elections in Bihar are around the corner. After 6 months, after another 6 months or some time, elections in West Bengal are coming, then Karnataka and all. So India is in the grip of a perpetual anti-minority mania because of this kind of thinking, which drives the hate narrative on and on. And once you start internalizing that narrative, it's a small step that you externalize. The Kashmir, which is an international dispute, is in the front and center of Pakistan-India differences and their animus. That narrative also drives Indian policy, and in Kashmir, India is practically annexed Kashmir. And after annexation, it wanted its consolidation of its complete chokehold by eliminating the last vestiges of the identity of Kashmiris, by dispossessing them, by snatching their property, by changing demographics, and by those political and administrative changes that give non-subject Kashmiris a greater say and role into Kashmiri politics and sociology. So that's the big game out of which springs the motive. So you asked your question, I'm coming exactly to that. What has happened? You see, this motive of this standoff, which appears quite surreal and to any rational mind, because seeking conventional war space in a nuclear overhang between two nuclear powers with well-defined red lines and
Exactly.
established nuclear deterrence with clear nuclear doctrines, it borders on insanity. But is there a method to their madness? To my reckoning, that method is to seek the greater glory for their complete domination regional agenda, win the elections, and to attain some concrete objectives. And those objectives were walking out of Indus Basin Treaty. They were looking for a casus belli. They
Yes.
wanted to create a big event, a black swan, for instance, or an event like this, where they wanted to give a plausible deniability and gain the moral high ground, which they have not.
They actually lost.
They actually lost. Second motive, to my reckoning, was to further increase their stranglehold and to further launch a new wave of repression. In 2019, it was Article 370's revocation.
Yes.
This time around, you will see the property has already been in a flux. They are raising the Kashmiris' houses. They are cancelling the leases, and they are they have already incarcerated after Pahalgam over 2,000 Kashmiris, and now they are trying to dispossess them. And I think a new wave of repression would start. The third motive was to keep Pakistan destabilized. Pakistan, which had started taking off economically, Fitch's ratings you saw, and macroeconomic indicators were getting better.
Exactly.
To keep it involved in a self-enervating internal as well as external conflict. Internal conflict, through their proxies, BLA and TTP, we were coming to grips with, and we were doing rather well. And they, in order to perhaps give a new lease of life to their proxies, they resorted to this act in order to exert a nutcracker-like, two-front-like war situation, and to keep us destabilized and force us to go to them from a position of weakness to agree to their diktat or hegemony, which they seek.
Sir, by many reports, people often say that the Jafar Express incident has some linkages to raw and Indian involvement, considering we trace BLA's funding towards them as well. So I guess it started a little before what we're seeing in Pahalgam and how things have taken off between Pakistan and India. But given India's post-Turi and Balakot precedent, do you view this latest episode as part of the new escalation ladder? And is Pakistan's current deterrence framework still effective when it comes to dissuading the enemy?
You started with the Jafar Express, and I'm a great believer in the first cause hypothesis. You've got to reach the root cause of why it is happening. The reflexive control was a strategy which was enacted by a global power to dismember another global power, involving it in costly arms race, destabilization, internal upheavals. The same playbook is being played by India now. India thinks in its hubris that it's too big to now be countenanced by a serious response by Pakistan. It wishes to exercise indirect control upon Pakistan through this proxy warfare, through destabilization. Ajit Doval, their national security advisor at present, erstwhile raw chief, is on record having said that we wish to go for offensive defense now, with which he meant in one of the universities he had earlier on remarked that we will bleed Pakistan through 1,000 cuts. So that kind of strategy, so that pays, because tying up with your next part of the question, the nuclear equation.
Yes.
You see, before I answer this specific question in the subcontinental context, let me take you through a tour de horizon of the nuclear strategy, its evolution, and the notions that now constitute the warp and woof of our nuclear doctrine, so to speak. The nuclear strategy was, in fact, conceived to prevent wars, to browbeat. The massive retaliation was the first strategy, Eisenhower's times. Now that was premised upon mutually assured destruction, that it is so devastating that the second country would think twice. Any country would think twice before initiating such a conflict. So that was a dissuasive kind of a thing. And the most important protagonist of the idea was Bernard Brodie. The Bernard Brodie was a nuclear strategist and a thinker, and he came up with this notion of using nuclear weapons credibility as a dissuasive measure. And he believed that the deterrence has to be credible, otherwise the deterrence is of no value. And he was followed up by people like Thomas Schelling, who believed in the art of intimidation. That, okay, you have the weapon, you're ready to use it, but how would you be effective if you do not have the power to actually convince the other party that it will be used? And the third strand was Lawrence Friedman, who was a proponent of flexible response. And flexible response was originally a term which had a patron in Robert Kennedy, that a range of actions, diplomatic, economic inducements, soft power, and the nuclear power, and the conventional war instrument, those have to be used in a synergy to attain the national objectives, to break the will of the other nation. Out of which the defense planners of NATO extrapolated this concept of flexible response.
I see.
That instead of going for massive retaliation, you should have something like conventional forces first to withstand the first brunt of offensive.
Like a chain of...
like a sequential chain. Conventional war, then you go to the... They came up with the concept of tactical nukes in the context of NATO, Germany versus Warsaw forces of Russia. And then, of course, climbing up the ladder. Herman Kohn, he coined the term escalation ladder. He came up with he was a proponent of thermonuclear war, and he believed that the thermonuclear war is actually fightable and winnable. And he started with his first rung and went up to the 44th rung. The first rung was posturing, and then signaling, and then climbing up.
It's a very detailed thing.
Yeah, detailed thinking. So, but all those things were challenged by the facts on ground. And there's a Israeli scholar, military writer, Martin von Creveld. He assessed all these nuclear notions and came up with a proposition that the nuclear strategy, in fact, is so annihilative that it is only deterrence that works. And he said that those who have coined terms like nuclear warfighting strategy in the tactical nukes domains, in fact, are deluding themselves. People like Robert McNamara during the Cold War, he had come up with a notion of those tripwire kind of nuclear. The sensors would tell us, and we would make the thresholds, and then tactical nuke would be used, and then the next step, the next weapon would be used. So Martin von Creveld said that each one of these war fighting strategies choked on its own absurdities, because nuclear war is not winnable.
It's not an option.
There's no, and in fact, he went ahead to say that nuclear strategy is no strategy. It's all deterrence. And he said that under that overhang of nuclear threat, and that which is threat, the deterrence ensures that that the future powers will not fight conventional wars or the nuclear wars, but they'll resort to sub-conventional conflict, low-intensity conflicts. And there would be actors which would be immune to nuclear, because how can you target something like a cellular structure of terrorists. So they will continue. So the war will transform. He wrote that, all those things in Transformation of War. So why I segued towards a long background was once we discussed in the subcontinental equation.
Yes.
The subcontinent, Pakistan is a smaller protagonist in this conflict equation. India is a bigger protagonist. And once we are confronted in a military equation, if we go conventionally, yes, India has a large conventional army, a strong economy, means, and perhaps in a long drawn out conventional conflict, Pakistan might come up as a loser. So that was the calculation of our strategic planners once they went for this nuclear deterrence to attain the nuclear capability. The aim was to close that space for conventional war and ensure that our security is undergirded by nuclear deterrence.
This is in reference to the full spectrum
Yes,
doctrine. Yes.
We have a credible minimum deterrence as a doctrine, which means that we will have enough nuclear weapons which will ensure that our deterrence holds, and we will attain that through full spectrum dominance,
Dominance, yes.
which includes the battlefield nukes. The battlefield nukes were just introduced to ensure that the space that India seeks on at operational level, at battlefield, that is also denied, and we have added an element of uncertainty for Indians, because if they wish to go for territorial gains that they were planning through their doctrines like Cold Start doctrine and later on known as proactive operations, that is completely thwarted. So that was the aim, not with the aim of actual fighting on the battlefield, but then the full spectrum means that whether it is battlefield, whether it is land, whether it is air, whether it is in the naval domain, we will have those capabilities to ensure that we match Indian nuclear and Indian conventional threat. So this is the dialectics between the two countries. India, being a bigger protagonist, now wishes to seek conventional dominance and is very fond of opening the space that conventional space needs, because it thinks that it has got a larger mechanized component, it has better panoply of arms, air force, navy, and it's spending around $77 billion. Compared to that, Pakistan's defense budget is a pittance. So by sheer quantitative edge, it could perhaps attain certain goals territorially or in the realm of force destruction to extract some concessions from Pakistan. But Pakistan wishes to deny. So our, art of war or our strategy relies on denying that space.
Okay.
So therein we can also say that Pakistan believes in avoiding war, and avoiding war is through deterrence. Deterrence should hold. In this case, for the first time in subcontinental history, India has disturbed that deterrence. Deterrence is nothing but you are afraid of attacking me because you will be attacked.
Yes.
And yet you attack. And this is a manifestation of complete operational megalomania, strategic megalomania, that they have crossed the airspace through missiles launched deliberately, targeting those so-called putative terrorist camps. Actually, those were mosques and madrasas where innocent women, children, they have died, unfortunately.
Exactly.
And Indians do not realize that whatever was past is past. Now Pakistan has come down very strong on all these entities which are non-state actors. Pakistan is grappling with its own problems. And these madrasas, they are under a lot of scrutiny. We have our national action plan, and you know how much we keep mulling over these extremist and counter-extremism issues. So how is it possible that Pakistan allows a non-state militant activity to take place? There's no cross-border movement of even the Kashmiris, actually who are fighting for their self-determination. They have an issue nowadays that Pakistan needs to do more by way of violence, which Pakistan withheld in the interest of peace.
Exactly.
And yet India sends the missiles, disturbs that stable deterrence, and therein lurks the danger that once you resort to such a rash act, if you Pakistan, which entirely relies on its deterrence, it would be forced to retaliate, to restore that deterrence. And the unintended spiral might lead to a situation wherein things could go towards a nuclear exchange. So that's the whole environment under which the nuclear dynamics operate.
Sir, on your point regarding establishing deterrence, because in for the layman public, right, they are not understanding why a response from the Pakistani side is not yet taken. And although in our official statements we have said that we will do it at a time and place of our choosing, but recently we also witnessed the issue with the drones that came in. I'm assuming they were for reconnaissance surveillance purpose, but they caused disturbance and fear, panic within the society as well. So people are wondering how that response is going to happen, why is it not happening, and in many places on the digital media platforms, I've heard the chatter that we are just making a bluff when it comes to our doctrine, the use of the first strike, the nuclear use. But of course, a layperson would not understand the kind of sophistication, the kind of challenges, or the issues that may come once you spiral into this. So perhaps you can address that too. But also moving forward, then what kind of risks or of strategic miscalculation we could foresee when one state blends kinetic responses with disinformation tactics? And we're seeing that time and time overnight, they on Indian digital platforms, in the Indian space, infosphere, we saw all kinds of fake news regarding attacks in Kashmir, regarding they apparently took over Islamabad. We're sitting here in Islamabad right now. They took over Lahore. Apparently a coup happened, and all these bizarre imagery that continued to bombard on these digital platforms. So what kind of environment will that lead to, even in terms of the battlescape?
Your first question about why a delayed response and a lot of rumors. Actually, the response was there. The deterrence is all about deterring enemy from attacking you. You have deterred by way of your airspace.
5 planes were shot down.
Yeah, and our Air Force, kudos to them. They came up trumps, and they bested one of the most much wanted fighters. The reason was our alertness, our preparedness, our better training, professionalism, greater integration of sensor, shooter, satellite fusion, and system integration.
Absolutely.
You do not
interoperability.
Indians invested in their platforms, mind you, and that was a platform-centric approach. We invested in our systems, the kill systems.
Yes.
So our kill system was much superior. It was honed, tempered through training, through satellites, fusion, data links, and use of the AEW. So it's a whole package. You fight as a whole package nowadays because the warfare has become net-centric. It's the age of networks would fight networks, not platforms to platform. And that is why Pakistan Air Force came up with these kills, 5 kills in a matter of 2-3 hours, in which the Indian Air Force was being scrambled, perhaps with an aggressive intent, and they would have followed up those missile attacks with these aerial forays as well. But since they got that setback, they grounded their Rafales because this PL-15 missile and this our electronic warfare capability, our radar coverage, our better preparedness. So that gave them Heebie Jeebies. So
it has clearly hit the egos.
Yeah, it has hit the egos, and this is in the information domain. This is what has rattled Indian leadership, and that is why they are resorting to those very rash acts Now, in order to assuage that embarrassment, they have resorted to another very provocative act of sending the loitering munitions. Those are Harop drones, which are essentially loitering munitions. They have a payload of around 23 kg, and they have a range of 1,000 kilometers. And this loitering munition, it seeks air defense is its coverage, essentially to map those, send the data back. And Pakistan responded very intelligently after suffering a casualty in a military premises in Lahore. It purposely did not engage with the radars so as not to give the positions, and use those guns, like Orlikan guns, to shoot down with the help of projectiles and to jam them and disable their communication. 77 of those high-priced drones have been brought down.
Now 77 of
The
them.
tally is 77 as of now.
Oh my God, I
So you'll
didn't
be
know
amazed.
that.
The entire Azerbaijan war, I think it was
one or two.
yeah, very minimal compared to this figure. This is mind-boggling.
Okay.
And look at the kind of mental, paralysis that Indian leadership is, that it is sending pell-mell. And to me, it does not appear very sane option. You are sending your loitering munitions, you are going one notch up. You have attacked civilians, and those loitering munitions, once they lose their ability to track and search, they might fall anywhere. And if they are shot down, only the debris can also do the damage.
Exactly.
So that way, that is another escalatory step. And information domain, yes, all kinds of rumors, etc. This is the information age, and information actually has become another principle of war nowadays. You have to wage war in information domain as well, to keep one step ahead of what enemy is thinking, to shape public opinion, to keep your resilience intact. And a lot of rumors, I think our media has done a good job.
Absolutely.
But one of the most important things during such information joust is the ability to retain your sanity and give the right facts packaged in the right manner at the right time. I think this is being done very well by our mainstream media and even our social media, which ordinarily was consumed by political sparring and hatred and polarization, has united to give a very solid united front. And the right picture is being presented to the world, because we see Al Jazeera, CNN, BBC, those correspondents are roaming around, they see things for themselves. And then a Potemkin reality in India. Potemkin is a word which signifies a village which was created by one of the kings to showcase his affluence of his subjects, but which
far from
reality. The Indians did the same during G20. They laid a complete barrier in Delhi, and behind that were people who were impoverished. They were kept away from the prying gaze of those visitors, and the world was given a. So it's all a Bollywood syndrome. So you wish to live in a Bollywood make-believe world, a cloud cuckoo land of your own, and you wish to believe that there would be a denouement, there would be a climax to your choice, and you can choreograph an ending as you do in your Bollywood.
In your movies.
Reality is not Bollywood.
Exactly.
And that is why this is a very dangerous escalatory spiral that both countries are in. And ideology, raw hate, emotion, if they take over your operational and strategic thinking, then this spiral can lead to a very catastrophic end. And I believe therein comes the role of the international community. Rather than these general exhortations, they must come down hard, do something concrete, convene a emergency meeting of Security Council, and the P5 must play their part, ordering immediate ceasefire, bringing both these countries to the negotiating table. So there's a whole raft of options with international communities, but at both countries level, I don't see much light of reason dawning on Indian leadership, which is in complete grip of frenzy, Hoftier, and
Chest thumping.
chest thumping. Yeah.
I do have two questions derived from the points that you've mentioned. But first, I'll ask you regarding the international arena, that with India's growing strategic alignments with the US, and it was, sort of being given this pedestal when it came to the Indo-Pacific politics. How do incidents like these then affect Pakistan's own geopolitical balancing act with countries like China, the Gulf states, Russia? We know that Saudi Arabia is representative from Saudi Arabia was in India, and they're expected to be here in Pakistan as well. China, Russia, everyone has asked for a de-escalatory approach. But how do you see our position then moving forward from this incident?
Shorn of IR verbiage, it's there's no gainsaying the fact that Pakistan would be supported diplomatically, militarily by China because of its investments in BRI, CPAC, and which country would not? So that's a reality. With the United States, we have old abiding ties, and Pakistan basically wishes to navigate a balanced course. But balance is very difficult to achieve actually in the real world. In theory, there are a lot of notions by the likes of Kant and even my Scheimer, the realist, Stephen Wald. They are coming with such notions of offshore balancing, then internal balancing, bandwagoning, and all those to underwrite your security. But between two global powers which are in a competitive mode, the balancing act is very, very difficult. You have to choose your national interests and your own interests with a lot of care. And the best way is to go for those things that give you a lot of benefit, and at the same time do not redound to the disadvantage or discredit of any other power. So bloc politics should be, I think we should stay away from that. But when it comes to your own national interests by way of some strategy, if you need these weapon systems, if you need satellite support, if you need AI and these modern technologies, if you are denied from one source, you will go to the next source.
Go to the next one, absolutely.
And you should let the global community know. Yes, in the interest of trade, in the interest of commerce, connectivity, technology transfer, we are open to the whole world. And we would like this East-West economic corridor to be fructified along with these BRI, CPAC variants and in a win-win formulations. So instead of adversarial, it is in the interest of Pakistan to leverage its geography for geo-economic gains like we always do, but never lose sight of the geopolitical realities.
Absolutely.
If those realities are being used against you, then you need to hedge your bets. And hedging your bets, how shrewdly, how adroitly you do, that's the pearl of high price that we need to chase in our diplomats. That's the function of our diplomats and our strategic leadership, that we do not annoy a global power and we do not fall entirely in the sway of another. So we should have a relationship based on sovereign equality which benefits you, essentially to your own benefit. So that is my take on this balancing and your relationship and navigating this course. But when you are confronted with a hegemon which has been assigned a role of a regional surrogate, and it figures in one power's overall strategy of containment, there is a very clear drawing of the boundaries between Indo-Pacific alliances and the economic-centered alliances. Preferably, you should stay away from this adversarial alliance pattern. But at the same time, you must have your strong allies, regional allies, and regionalism, look east. I think that is the way to go. There is a strong regional integration desire in Central Asian states, West Asia, Central Asia, South Asia. So whole region needs to benefit through connectivity, trade, and this containment thing, we should keep our fingers crossed. Maybe President Trump tomorrow breaks ice with Xi Jinping.
He seems to be an eccentric personality.
Possibly on his birthday. Their birthdays are close by, so
Exactly.
you never know.
You never know. So, sir, very lastly on our conversation back to India and Pakistan specifically, this one incident, how do you think it would fit into the broader arc of our bilateral relations, Pakistan-India? And would you be optimistic about any viable pathway for any further bilateral engagement to de-escalate, or do you see this only spiraling ahead?
I'm a great believer in positive peace. And the notion of structural violence of John Galtung. You have to go to the first causes. You cannot have a lasting, sustained peace without removing the basic causes. But till the time those causes are removed, you have to negotiate the present. So we need to talk, both countries, and the fundamental causes of conflict, the disputed state of Jammu and Kashmir. I think that needs to be resolved. Until the time it is resolved, we need to sit down and assess each other's maximalist and minimalist positions and find a common ground to leverage the present advantages that geography, technology, trade confers upon both these countries.
Absolutely.
Instead of denying connectivity, and instead of getting into a perpetual adversarial mode, which is self-enervating, which is draining our energies, I think the future lies in cooperation. Whether it is in the shape of a regional alliance, whether it is in the shape of a pact, whether it is in the shape of opening up on trade front, but essentially that visceral hatred, that hubris, that fundamental impulse that drives this exclusivism in India needs to be moderated. We live in hope that Indian leadership sees the light of reason. Maybe opposition alliance led by Congress, it gains traction. In India, there are voices of sanity. There are pockets where they think otherwise, other than this Hindutva agenda. So we hope that those forces come, and then both countries can sort out their differences. Until the time that issue is resolved in the light of what we think is the lasting solution, some intermediate solutions are put in place to put a bulwark against violence and viscerality and create climate of cooperation. The present standoff is very, very dangerous because it emanates from those primeval instincts that drive atavistic behavior, otherization.
The otherization.
One community doesn't want another community to exist. One community doesn't want another way of life to survive. It wishes to stamp out all vestiges of pluralism, other civilizations. It believes in plastic surgeons putting Ganesha's trunk on medieval and pre-medieval India. So how can that thinking be squared with the present notions of cooperation, modernity? For that to happen, this attitudinal shift has to come from within India, because Pakistan, to my reckoning, has already understood and realized that we need peace, and we need to control these extremist entities from within us, and the future lies in economic cooperation, trade, and the human-centric progress which improves the lot of your own people. Now, till the time we achieve those, we go for those lofty goals, we need to be very, very careful to navigate these minefields, because the present standoff is an indication that when irrationality takes control of the policy making hubs, it can result in irrational choices. And the present conflict, the standoff is still on. Loitering munitions are still
Exactly.
being lobbed. Our response is being mulled. And when our response goes in the shape of missile attacks to restore our strategic balance, how would India react, which is still in the grip of that frenzy, which has raised that sense of make believe, triumphalism into a fever pitch? Would it pocket it? Or would it again go one step up and then we will go one step up, and this escalatory spiral leads us to unthinkable, the nuclear exchange? And we are denying this conventional war space. We have the capability. Our new warfighting concept, it's an antidote to their proactive operation. It compresses that space for them. It doesn't allow them, because we launch our reserves early. We have forward-leaning posture. We use those weapon systems, air, artillery, air defense, all integrated manner to thwart those forays into our land. When we deny the conventional space, then what is left?
What more do they need to do?
So nuclear is the guarantor of your peace and deterrence, and that deterrence has to be restored. And one way of restoring is to make the other party think that it will pay a very heavy cost.
Price.
So it remains to be seen whether India would stop at the next escalatory rung or would like to seek another space, another elusive space within that gray zone. It is using that space in the shape of loitering munitions now. It tried line of control exchanges,
Yes.
miserably failed. It's got a bloody nose on line of control, losing 40 odd lives, 2 brigade headquarters and a lot of posts. So what more are they going to gain? And now they have started targeting our civilians. So this escalatory spiral will go on till the time the dose of rationality is not injected, the realism. And I, for one, hope that this escalatory spiral comes to an end, because like Harman Khan, we don't have the option of 44 rungs. We are eyeball to eyeball. Even one rung mistake can lead to a holocaust.
Exactly, it could be a direct attack. That is quite an optimistic approach, but on my end I feel like even if we were to give our response, the way things are moving, the way their people are creating that kind of pressure on, because they have created that monster, that Frankenstein themselves, to push and move ahead and retaliate. So far we are constantly hearing their media houses patter the same kind of narrative about we will respond if you do anything. And naturally we have to establish our rules in the game as well.
Perhaps we need a study on the irrationality of RSS Sociology.
Absolutely, it has literally seeped into the very fiber of their society.
And the people have lapped up that narrative, hook, line, and sinker.
Exactly.
They have internalized that hyper nationalism.
It's become an identity now.
I would have loved Shashi Tharoor's perorations on anti-colonialism and how India was deprived of its riches and all. But when it serves the other purpose, I am concerned. When it fuels hyper nationalism, when it leads to otherization of minorities, I am concerned, because Shashi Tharoor, for once, did not
so he turned out to be a disappointment in this.
Yes, in this whole
we always
scenario.
saw him as a sane voice, as an intellectual kind of person who's there to he represented a certain intellectual intelligentsia within India.
But I thought him to be an anti-colonial voice, but he's turned out to be
exactly the same as
a votary of Hindutva, exclusivism and supremism.
People have started calling him Diet Hindutva. So there's that version too. No, thank you so much, sir, for your time and in expanding our knowledge in terms of how this conflict is seen, what are the reasons and how it came about. And definitely we hope that sanity prevails. And while we speak, currently things are happening, probably the headlines are also changing, but hopefully it will end soon. So thank you so much, and we would love to have this conversation again.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, and see you again on another episode of Policy Beats.